Hello everyone, welcome back to my series in Factorio, in which I'm attempting to build my very first mega factory. My name is Azrael. Come along with me as we continue our adventure. Alright, I'm making some room in my inventory here, because that's always an issue. If you remember in the previous episode, I began building a defensive perimeter wall, but then I ran out of wall segments because I was getting low on stone in my factory. I just found this tiny little deposit down here, and I'm going to want to clear that out before I eventually expand the unloading stacker for the iron ore. Before I have to put enough stations down there. So I get that going with 4 different mining drills and a furnace to convert it into stone bricks. But I want to do a setup similar to the one that I have in my other deposit, where I have one furnace just making stone bricks and one furnace that's making stone bricks that are then converted into walls. So here's the second furnace down here. I'm going to have this one just collect stone bricks, and the first one I put down is going to craft up the wall segments. Just got to get everything connected to power, and there it goes. We'll leave that alone and come back a little bit later to see how it's doing. I'm also going to pick up a few more blue belts and get rid of some of the yellow belts if I can, just because my inventory is really starting to fill up. And I am kind of a pack rat in this sense. I understand that, and I admit it. I'm kind of a hoarder for my inventory. It's like all of this stuff is going to be useful eventually. I don't want to put it down, because then I'll need it at some point and not have it and have to go back and find it. But so it is a constant struggle with trying to find room in there. I'm going to upgrade this uh, station to the final form, as it were. And then, of course, I also realized that I forgot to put in the name for that station to ensure that the trains would use one or the other. It was named one of the random default names that Factorio has. And I'm going to go ahead and put down a second unloading station here for the copper as well, but I also don't have enough underground belts and splitters of the express variety, so I have to go back and pick up some more of those, get some research done out of the way, and I'm going to try to focus on the last remaining bits of research that only require red and green science packs, because blue science is being bottlenecked right now because of the lack of oil. All of my oil deposits have trickled down to that zero point 0.1 per second, so they're still working, but they're being very slow. So as a result, my factory is running low on oil, and which means that the plastic production can't keep up with the demand in the red circuit factory, and the red circuits feed into the blue science, and etc., etc. A classic definition of a bottleneck right there. So I'm going to get that taken care of. I have spotted a deposit over here with 9 uh, oil spots, whatever you want to call them. They just look like a little puddle on the ground, like the oil is just seeping up. So I'm going to go ahead and put down a new facility over there to pump that out, making a brief pit stop over here in my original iron mine, because several more of these uh, mining drills have run out of resources. This patch is starting to dry up. Now, there are still a few more spots I can put down some mining drills in the future, so it'll be fine for now. Plus, I have the new iron mine down to the south, so we're not in a terrible hurry for that, and I'm really not using a whole lot of iron plates in the factory yet anyway. Anyway, I come over here, I get those trees cleared out of my way, and you can see there's just a ton of little deposits over here. I'm just going to lay them all out. This will be a significant boon to the factory. I want to make sure that I get this thing nice and protected. So I'm going to put down a few gun turrets. just covering the outer perimeter there. I'm going to focus it primarily on the eastern edge because I do see a rather large biter nest over there on the mini-map, the big splotch of red, and so that's where I'm assuming the majority of attacks are going to come from. There might also be a little bit to the north as well, but this number of gun turrets should be sufficient for what I can expect. In fact, I do believe there's a tiny bit of overkill over there on the eastern edge anyway, but not a big deal. Right now I'm just going to connect the oil pipeline back up to the main factory. Now, there was some debate in my mind whether I wanted to bring it in via pipeline or if I wanted to set up a barreling facility and bring it in by train, which wouldn't be a bad idea because there are a lot of things being produced over here in my oil refinery area that could do with a train station for export as well, such as the solid fuel. Um, but in the end, I just decide I'm going to bring it all in by a pipe. It should be fine. I know that there's some throughput loss over long distances with pipes, but uh, if you use underground pipes in the fashion that I have, you lose significantly less of that throughput, and it still outpaces what the refineries are capable of doing. So I don't see it as being a major problem. In the meantime, I'm also reorganizing the pipe layout for my other two oil lines, so that all three of my resource patches are now piping the oil into those storage tanks, and that should hook everything up to that. So now that it'll store up in that storage tank before going into the refineries. And as luck would have it, a single substation covers all 9 of those pump jacks. Now I've just got to bring the power line into the main grid. And there it goes. Going to reposition that, but then I realized I don't need to because it connects that line anyway. Now all 9 of them are running. Everything's going good. And the last thing I want to do over here is build up a wall around the place. Just, one extra layer of protection against any incoming biter attacks. So, going to go ahead and put that down now. That there is that one gun turret that's a little too close to the wall. As I understand it, biters are actually able to reach past the wall by one tile and can potentially damage that turret. But there's enough turrets in place where any potential attack like that won't last long enough to really make a huge difference. At least ideally, I could be wrong, of course, because we still haven't seen that final upgrade to the biters, that being the behemoth biters. But I'm thinking it shouldn't be too big of a problem. And there was a part of me that's thinking that maybe I should go ahead and implement a few flamethrower turrets up there, given the amount of oil that's being produced. Maybe I could, uh, sacrifice a little bit to that. But that oil deposit is right in the middle of a rather dense forest, so it might come back to bite me, more so than the biters themselves, if I were to set that forest on fire and end up destroying large acres worth of land. So I'm deciding against it, at least for the moment. Maybe sometime in the future, I don't know. Okay, now I'm over here in my power plant, and I am going to disconnect the steam engines from the main grid because I've been researching this. Now that in the 0.13 update, since accumulators can be connected to the circuit network, I can set up a customized power switch, very similar to what I was doing in the oil refinery up to the north, and have it so that the steam engines are only connected to the main network when the power level in those accumulators goes down to a certain point. And again, kind of like the storage tanks, in the accumulator setup that I've got right here, uh, provided that they are all connected to the solar panels during the daytime, every accumulator gets the same amount uh, of power as every other accumulator. So one is pretty much a good indicator of the entire system. I have this set up now so that when the accumulator, when the charge in the accumulators drops below 5%, the steam engine array will reconnect to the main system and provide an emergency power situation. I'm just kind of sitting around right now waiting to see how well this works. And I have to chuckle a little bit because right now I have exactly 666 solar panels in my array. So it's just a little something to keep me occupied there. Right now we're just looking, and as if you look really close, the power switch is toggling quickly between on and off, which means that look at that graph go. It's switching constantly back and forth between less than 5 and more than 5, but that is an indicator that the switch is working. It is successful. Of course, it's also a, a harbinger of bad news in the fact that my solar panel slash accumulator array is not producing enough power during the night, or not producing enough during the day, not storing enough during the night to keep the factory running. So that's a problem I'm going to have to take care of sooner rather than later. In the meantime, I'm also checking some of these connections here in my oil refinery. I don't have enough petroleum gas, so I reconfigured that power switch a little bit to turn on the cracking plants when the level reaches 2,000 rather than 2,300 in the light oil storage tanks. So hopefully that will mitigate the problem a little bit more. All right, so and as you can see, plastic production is back underway, doing a pretty good job of that as it is. I know now, right now, now, can I say now a few more times? Anyway, now, the major bottleneck in my factory is, of all things, the steel production. There you can see the plastic is catching back up to the demand, but the blue science packs are lagging behind because of the lack of steel plates. So that's something I'm going to have to fix here in the near future. In the meantime, I'm checking out my original stone deposit. It has run out, but apparently this whole time I've been reading the map a little wrong, and there is more stone down just to the south. Now, the unfortunate thing is that the tracks, the train line servicing the copper mine down south is right on top of it. But the good news is that because of the fact that these electric mining drills have an active area of 5 by 5, despite having a footprint of only 3 by 3, it's effectively able to reach under the rails and mine out all that stone. Now, in the real world, that would probably make the ground underneath those rails too fragile, so that when the train goes on across it, it'll collapse under its own weight, then create a little sinkhole. But since this is a video game, those kinds of physics don't come into play. Right now, it's just a matter of getting those power lines in a place that I could squeeze them in. But that's going all well. So now I have the two areas dedicated to stone brick production and therefore wall segments. So I should be back to uh, building the defensive perimeter wall in the next episode or two. But right now, I do feel that the solar panel issue is a greater problem. So I'm going to go ahead and pick up a few more accumulators and some solar panels, and I'm going to go build a few more patches there. And I'm also going to put down some lights here along the perimeter wall just so that it's lit up during the night, that we can see those intruders coming. And there we go. Put in a few lights. There's an attack on the northern wall segment, but it's nothing serious. There was an attack over here earlier, but again, nothing serious. Just a little bit of damage to those turrets, and they still have a decent amount of ammunition within them. So I'm not going to worry too much about it. I'm just going to go ahead and continue down here to the south. I'd completely forgotten about those 6 missing panels from the last excursion. So anyway, those are now taken care of. I need to move this wall south a bit, and that's going to require uh, moving everything around with those bots. But uh, still, this is so much faster and easier than the way I was doing it before, where I had to lay it all down one at a time by hand. This is just so much quicker. And especially to see all 20 of my personal construction bots running out there. And one thing I did not notice or did not realize was that when you have more than one personal roboport in your armor, it also extends the range of the construction bots by just a little bit each time. So they are actually able to travel just a bit farther. But apparently I also did not pick up enough solar panels and accumulators to do what I needed to do down here. Not even nearly by half. While I'm down here, I'm going to go ahead and put the wall in place so that there's not a big gap in my defenses before running back up into the factory to pick up some more panels and accumulators. I'm going to clear out all this forest here. Just a little at a time, I'm deforesting this planet. But again, since it's a video game, I don't really care. If this was the real world, of course, I'd probably have something to say about that. But, you know, here in this game, pollution and deforestation are just parts of the game. And it's something that's going to happen with a mega factory especially. There's no way you can't pollute that much, so it's not a major concern. Anyway, I rambled on about that enough. I'm putting down all these turrets here because there is a biter nest just to the south of here. I'm going to go ahead and take care of that here in a little while, but first I want to get these solar panel arrays uh, put back up. One of my new stone mining drills has already run out, but that's okay. I didn't figure it was going to last very long anyway, because it was such a small resource patch. It also wasn't very deep, as they say. It was rather thin below the surface, I guess. Here comes a wave of biters coming to attack that area, but it's a good thing I had those defenses in place. Otherwise, that they would have made rather short work of that. Anyway, get those last couple of panels in place, set down a few new iterations here, watching all those bots take off, and get the corners filled in. And once again, I am out of solar panels. I'm short by 7 panels there this time. I'm not going to make a huge deal out of that right now, because I just went back into the factory and got those, so I'll do that again later. In the meantime, I'm down here trying to clear out this biter base. This one has 3 large worms in it, so it's going to be a little tricky. I don't want to get out the tank just yet, but in hindsight, of course, that may have been a better idea. Use a little bit of the flamethrower to take out one of those spawners in no time at all. In the meantime, just trying to figure out what to do with these biters, or the worms specifically. Run in to try to shoot a few. They nearly kill me, but I did manage to do some damage to them. I don't have enough in my inventory to craft up grenades or anything like that. Tried to run away, and they killed me. It just has to do with the fact that those the projectiles that the worms shoot at you will follow you and hit you no matter how far you run away from them. Once it is launched, it is going to hit its target. So take 2, I managed to do that a little more intelligently. A little more. I mean, this is me we're talking about, so intelligent doesn't always apply. Instead of running up into the factory to get those last 7 solar panels, I'm just going to craft them up in my inventory one at a time and let the bots fill in those spaces as they become available. It's a bit slow, so be thankful that the video is sped up 300% so that you don't have to sit through that boring little bit there. All right, so that takes care of that. More of these drills are run out. That one won't be too much longer, but it'll do for a while. I'm gonna head back up here, check on my oil reserves, my petroleum gas. It's slowly creeping back up, so it's not going to be a huge deal. And in the meantime, that is all the time we have for today's episode. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Azrael. Never stop building.